Hi, it's Dr. Marco. Weekly health tip. We're going to be talking about tight or painful muscles, and specifically going to be focusing on tight calves, but I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown explanation of how I work on this. So we're sort of continuing in the vein of doing the opposite. So normally, let's say somebody had like a really tight, painful bicep. Sometimes they would say, oh, let's work on that, let's try to stretch it, let's ice it or heat it. So they're always kind of trying to put their focus on whatever is causing the pain or the discomfort. But sometimes from our neurological approach, we want to do something to the opposite side, or the muscle that does the opposite action, to have an impact on this one. So I've just drawn two generic bones here. Those are just generic bones. I just made them up. But here's a muscle on the front and a muscle on the back. So it's important to realize that muscles don't get tight on their own. You don't get a tight muscle. The muscle it doesn't have its own mind of its own. A muscle will only respond or contract to a nerve signal that sends to it to make a contraction. So there has to be an impulse down a nerve to make the muscle contract. Okay, that's important to realize. So muscles are all controlled by your nerve system, and that's the big impact of what chiropractic does, is that we work on your spine and your nerve system to make sure that's working optimally. So if this muscle here gets a signal to contract, it'll start to shorten. So when that muscle shortens, it'll start to pull these two bones closer together. So that's the action we want to do for this. If we wanted to bend our elbow, for example. But for that to actually occur smoothly, the nerve going to the back muscle on the opposite side, it actually has to be inhibited or shut off so that that muscle won't contract at the same time. So this actually has to be shut off for these two bones to actually get close to each other while that contracts. So that's usually how normal joint motion, and it'll be nice and smooth and work properly. But sometimes when we do have nerve interference, subluxations in the spine, it can cause imbalances. One side of the brain might be weaker or stronger than the other, and it can cause more contraction on one side of the body. And we can end up having something that we call co-contractions, meaning both sides, even though this is doing the predominant of the work, this doesn't get shut off properly, and it stays tight or contracted at the same time, not to the same degree. But the effect of that is it actually kind of squeezes the bones together while it's doing that motion. So what's end up happening there, you're actually getting more jamming in the joint. You might start to wear down the cartilage. It probably will start to get inflamed. If this happening on one side of the spine compared to the other, it can cause a lot of one-sided body problems, things going down the arms, or one side of the body feeling really bad, or that kind of thing, or one body part being very painful. So what happens is it's important to realize when that nerve signal comes down to tell it to contract, there isn't another nerve signal for this muscle that says, okay, now relax. What has to happen is if this got a signal and it contracted and the person died and there wasn't any more nerve signals, it would stay contracted like that. What actually has to happen is for that to be straightened out again, the actual opposite muscle actually has to contract for that to come back again. Okay? So sometimes I've worked with people that have had like tight calves. I've had football players and stuff that they're always doing sports and running and sprinting and running into the dummies and things like that to practice the tackling. And they've come in with tight muscles, tight calves, and they said, I've done all the stretching and put my foot up on the block and stretching it out and doing the lunge stretch and everything, but they stay tight all the time. And I said, well, let's take a different approach. Let's see if we can activate the muscle on the opposite side. So let's say here's the calf muscle on their back that's tight and they can't stretch it out and it's always really painful and tight. Let's activate the muscle on the front. So I'm going to demonstrate here. There's a young man who's going to show this, how I got them to do this. So what I do is, if you can see, he's actually standing, and I get them to actually just let their body come back like they're going to fall backwards. And as they fall backwards, what happens is automatically the muscles on the front part of the leg contract to try to prevent you from falling backwards. So you can see that the toes lift up off the ground. So you would just do this repeated, make it like an exercise. So you do, 10 repetitions of almost falling backwards, and then as you're falling back, those leg muscles on the front contract, and reflexively they will have to actually make the calf muscles relax. So as you can see, that was just one way that we can kind of work on doing the opposite thing or doing something different to kind of have an impact on certain parts of the body. Next week I'll be showing you a really cool sort of way that somebody has problems with the front of the hand or carpal tunnel. There's an exercise to use this kind of methodology to help with that too. So if this video tip was helpful, please share it. One link down below, make a comment, or share the video if you could. And we'll see you at the next video next week. Thanks.